Hello everyone, it's Emily, and before we get into our podcast, I wanted to remind all of our listeners that every month, Bernie and I host an Unreasonable Connexion event where you can meet your co-working peers, talk, swap stories and advice, and get an extra charge of energy. Sign up on Luma or in the show notes, and let's get on with the podcast.
Hello folks, and welcome to today's Co-working Values podcast. Nearly forgot the name of my own podcast here. And with us today in the studio is Elina. What are you known for, Elina, and what would you like to be known for?
Oh my.
Yeah.
You should have informed me about that. What I'm known for. I guess my name pops up quite frequently when it comes to freelance economy. I am the one who talks about it a lot. And I try to look at it from different perspective. From a perspective of a freelancer, as being a freelancer myself. From perspective of governments, how freelancing actually can benefit governments and states in many ways. From a position of a company, if company is hiring freelancers, what they win with it. But also kind of looking at what sort of help freelancers need in this ecosystem, because we quite frequently very lonely as we're working alone. So what do we need to succeed? What is missing out there? How can we improve our life? Even though by all research, they say the freelancers are happiest people. I was surprised to see that, but that's true. We still need to have that support. So that is what I'm passionate about, how we can create an ecosystem that is supporting all of us, actually. So that's what I'm known for. I'm also helping companies to run communities and events. And there are many other things that I might have forgotten, but these are the main ones.
And so one of the we were talking about this just before we came on, and can you say a little bit about the work you do and that policy project about recognizing freelancing? Because so much of the freelance conversation is like, cupcakes and monday.com, and there's this harsh reality, and you're one of the few people in the years that I've been in this freelancer ecosystem that is like talking about policy and fighting, like the Che Guevara of freelancing in Europe.
Yeah. Well, as any initiative, it starts from personal opinions, right? And I had the benefit of comparing conditions of being a freelancer here in Europe and in other countries. And I do see the difference. I see in some countries where indeed support freelancers, and I see here in my personal reality where I'm being penalized 300% by the tax authorities, which is not a great thing to have, and being scrutinized and having a hell of a lot of administration to submit your taxes. And I'm just wondering, why is this the case? So therefore, I started thinking, can there be something done to improve that for freelancers? Because technically, if we bring so many benefits, and the benefits is that, like, we create our own job, so we really improve unemployment rate. We, as I mentioned, we tend to be happier, so less burden for the health care system with all the burnouts and stuff and diseases that are coming out of it. We contribute to the budget by paying taxes and many other things that I might be forgetting now. So if we're doing all that for the governments, they don't need to be concerned about it. And why are we being charged as much as businesses who are probably generating more revenue and so would it be fair actually to look at amount of revenue they're generating and base your tax on that, and then give freelancers an opportunity to choose whether they want to be in a cohort of small businesses or solopreneurs with different tax rates and different benefits coming out of it. So as we started that, obviously, if you have an idea, you start looking like who could join you in this journey, and we would like it to have certain people who were as passionate about it as I am. So we put together a forum bring policymakers and discuss that issues. So that is still baby steps. There's lots to be done, and I'm pretty sure there are people who probably know more about it than myself. But just trying to uncover step by step and see what's in there. Do we actually have any statistics pointing to the fact that if like entire population of the country would be freelancing, how different it would be comparing with having fixed jobs, and how different it would, like what sort of impact it would have on ecology, for example, on healthcare system, on, I don't know, work-life balance that everyone speaks about, and many other things. And we don't have that information yet. Like in Belgium, for example, we can't even measure freelancers because there's still not a separate code for that. We've been still grouped with some other workers who are not freelancers. They're independent workers, but in a different field. And therefore, if we don't have that separate number, it's difficult to run any estimations and measure the impact.
Why do you think it is that it seems almost ridiculous to be having this conversation in 2025, but especially after COVID and how work changed in COVID, it feels like all the recent elections in any country, like freelancers are invisible. And there was some roundtable I got invited to, and which was a piece of UK government research. And I just thought, I hadn't done anything around this for ages. And I just thought, are we still talking about this? And it's not like I pay a lot of attention reading documents and everything like this, but I was like, I can't believe we're still talking about this. Was it 2022 that was? Because it was the year we moved to Spain. And what is it, because governments are just so bureaucratic and antiquated, or is it some other force trying to stop the freelancing recognition?
Yeah, I think maybe numbers are still not as significant. And we're not visible enough to have that power to say, hey, it's time to move on. It's like, I was very curious the other day to look at the evolution of the work and how the definition of work evolved. And if you go far in the past, and like in Stone Ages, the work was for men to go and hunt and bring food, and for women, take care of whatever dwelling they had at the time, and that's it. And as we were progressing with the Industrial Revolution and many other things that were happening, the roles of men and women also changed, and therefore the work that they were doing were also changing. And I was looking at my own family, like my girl, when I say I have to go to work, it's basically going to another room. When my mom says I need to go to work, she had to stand up at 6 and go to another part of the city to do her work. When her mom would say I need to go to work, that means she would go to the fields to harvest whatever was growing at that time. And her mom, I don't know. So different generations were doing work differently, and I think it takes time for this complete transformation, when eventually that will become a norm. What is, to my opinion, what is happening also these days is that the tax bill that's coming from companies is still much more bigger in proportion than what comes from small businesses. And maybe that's not true. I don't have statistics, like I said, it's difficult to judge. But the moment it will start becoming bigger, probably will be more attention.
Yeah.
But again, we can't, like, if we look at the world generally, there is so much power within a certain group of people in certain industries that it's almost impossible to break it, right? If you know what I mean. So it's, would I like to see the world entirely doing solo business? Yeah, that would be ideal. But is every industry would be prepared for that? I don't know.
But what, like, as we're talking about this, I keep thinking about when, so, we moved to Spain in 2022, and in the UK, you can do everything in an app, and you can plug into the tax system on an app, and, it's all like really easy to do and setting up a company. Mm-hmm. And then in Spain, which is a much nicer place to live, but to set up as a freelancer is really, really hard. And I'm not going to bore everyone with the details, but I was shocked at how difficult and bureaucratic it is to organize yourself as either as a freelancer or as a small company in this country versus the UK. You can sort of wake up at 9, log on, get free agent or something like that, log on to the company's house, set up a company, and then bang, you're off. And, and make a Squarespace website. So you could probably get going in like 3 hours. And there's a lot of bits of paper to fill in here. What I want to jump on to how you're reforming your own community. And then I've got to ask you about what co-working spaces can do in this kind of new era of freelancing. But what was it, 2020 you started Freelance Business Community?
Yeah, it started even earlier, 2018 or so.
I knew I was wrong.
Yeah, no, well, very close. With a local meetups and conferences here in Belgium. But then my aspiration was always to build a global community because I wanted to connect with people outside of Belgium. I didn't have much interest in Belgium, to be honest, because all my projects were international. My clients were international. And I wanted to connect with freelancers in different parts of the world. And pandemic helped that tremendously. We went online, as everyone did, and voila, the freelance business community, as it is now, was born almost in a second. It was so easy to gain attention. It was the right moment for the community transformation. And back then, the idea was, just because it was so exciting, like there was lots of attention on freelancing, lots of companies were paying attention, lots of products and services were popping up. So my idea was like, hey, if this is happening and this is a hype and the way is coming, I want to be the one who would gather everyone together to exchange. And so idea was that at that time, the freelance business community is actually established on 3 pillars, one of which is freelancers. Another one is product service providers targeting freelancers, platforms, or whoever. And those who hiring freelancers. And that was successful with the Freelance Business Month that eventually carried the mission of connecting all those peoples together with different programs within the month. But then as world changes, you start noticing that in order to address the needs of each of the cohort, you need to have a specific expertise for each of them. And so you either go into, developing this expertise and enlarging your team, or you eventually narrow down into something in one of each. So for me, naturally was narrowing down on freelancers only made total sense. And also due to the fact that like a year and a half almost was quite idle for me for family reasons. So I took the time to rethink what I'm trying to achieve with this community. Am I actually making an impact that I would like to make? And if I'd like to make that impact, what do I need to do for that? So all that resulted eventually in me being very strategic in terms of who I want to see in the community. So it's not like for everyone. And someone actually texted me privately after the post I made on LinkedIn, like, hey, are you saying that your community is not inclusive anymore? Like, that's not the point. It is still inclusive. Like, I don't make any separation in terms of where you're from or region or whatever. But I am focusing on specific point of your freelance business journey. So perhaps not the absolute starter and not the one who is making like millions already. My cohort, as I see it myself, will be someone who has spent 5, 6, up to 10 years struggling to run business and hit the plateau. And now they realize that actually they're missing business skills, because that's been my journey. I've been freelancing now, 8 years? And only now, well, I started understanding I'm missing business skills early enough, but only now I'm like, I'm ready to invest in my education. That's what I'm doing heavily right now, into actually lift myself up from rotating in the same circle, providing the same services, and charging more or less the same fees, So as I was not able to see myself out of this, I want to build a structure and a system that would allow myself and others to get out of it. So that is eventually my strategy for freelance business community, which means that there would be specific products, educational products for freelancers at charge, because that was also another issue for me. As community was free, it was difficult to monetize. And so eventually, if I would look at community as business, and there was another post also that I did on LinkedIn, and some people criticize me for being too, how to say it? Not
commercial.
Commercial, yeah, with the community. But hey, what I'm supposed to do? It cannot run by itself. It needs to be monetized. And I think that will help me to actually achieve that goal.
It does. I think like exactly like you, that been running 5 to 10. So you hear about all these business things and you kind of read them, but you haven't experienced them. And then you get to that stage where you said of like 5 to 10 years, and you go, I've been doing this a long time. And you go, now there's like business skills I thought I knew I had, but I'm not actually, I don't know what to do with them. I think that's a very, I just, as you were saying that, I just know so many freelancers that I've met in co-working spaces over the years that are in that little stage there. And it's almost like there's loads of stuff around for how to get started in your freelance career. And there's all this other like horrible stuff online, £5 million freelancer, come to our mastermind on a yacht in Monaco or something, and that middle bit is where most people are, I think.
Yeah. And that is crazy. Like if you're only starting and you think you can hit your million in the first year and you join that cohort, well, okay, I'm happy for you, but I have doubts that it will be happening because you need to go through certain things to experience yourself. And again, my case is not unique. Maybe there are much more smarter people who figure out things much earlier. But I was pretty happy at the start. I'm like, okay, this is working. It's pretty good. But how do I move forward? Like when you're in the corporate world, you probably have a little bit of a direction for your career growth. But as a freelancer, it's not the same. Even though there are more opportunities and you define your career actually the way you want it. And that was the case with me. I was able to take positions that I couldn't dream of. But still, in terms of servicing clients, how I go from like execution to strategic partnership or consulting, I've got this question recently when I had a conversation with the pricing coach. And he's like, it looks like from what you're doing, you're not a consultant. You're just executing your work. The work that client passes on you, and that's it. There is no way to go from that level into calling yourself something higher than just an event coordinator. And I'm like, I'm not event coordinator already a long time ago. But he said, but by the work you do, you are. So that is the shift that needs to be happening. And I'm not able to do it myself. I need to be coached. I need to be trained, as in sport. You think that is your max, but once you get a fantastic coach, you can do much more. And I've been in sports, so I know. So yeah, that's what's happening.
That's both Emily and I have spent time with coaches in the last year, and that bit you said about going from event coordinator to consultant, we've gone through that pain barrier too, and it's part of it is breaking a habit and moving out your comfort zone, and getting quite grown up about it. I know we said we were going to talk about co-working, but we need to come back and do part 2 for that, because I think how a co-working space can serve a freelance community is a much bigger conversation, because I keep thinking of other things to ask you. So we're going to have to come back and do part 2. So I'm going to leave you hanging, folks, where can people, we're going to put links in the show notes as always. So Elina, where can we track you down online? What's the best way to connect with you and follow your work?
Yeah, the best is LinkedIn. I'm there.
That's and folks, we're going to put a link to the Freelance Business Community in the show notes. And also, what was the name of the report you did?
The report. We did several reports. So we have a white paper on the policy forum. I also published it on LinkedIn. We have reports. The most recent we did where freelancers finding work. And we have actually several guides. Pretty interesting recently was published on financial tools for freelancers. So feel free to check it out. We have a directory of other communities, mega useful for anyone who would like to connect with as many communities. And yeah, that's it.
We'll put links to all of that in. I'm so excited about the show notes, I can't speak. Put links to all of that in the show notes, folks. And also there's European Co-working Days coming up. So there's a link to that. There's the Workspace Design Show, which is going to be in Amsterdam in November. And then it's in London in February. And there's the Co-working LinkedIn group, which has got super active. So if you click that link in there, if you aren't already a member, just click it and we'll click hello and we'll approve you and let you in. And the more you can comment on posts in there, the better, because it just, when you comment, it encourages other people to comment, and it's a safe space to have conversations about co-working, freelancing, and what type of coffee machine to have in your co-working space. So wherever you are in the world, be careful out there. It is a jungle.